So carbon, if you remember, is an element. All right. And carbon is really the basis of all of the things that we talk about when it comes to living things. Everything is carbon-based that lives on planet Earth. And so anytime you hear the word organic, in the store, when it comes to food, that's a different thing. But when scientists refer to organic, they're talking about carbon-based. When they say macromolecule, we're talking about a big molecule. So carbon is an element that can make 4 bonds. Okay, so there are 4 valence electrons. All right, and if you look at this picture over here, we've got 4 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4 valence electrons means that there are 4 electrons on the outside that it can make bonds. So because of these 4 valence electrons, it has a lot of different opportunities. All right, we can have short chains or we can have long chains. So we can have 2 carbons next to each other. We can have 30 or more carbons next to each other. They can orient themselves in rings. They can be branched, which means they can stick off in all different directions. And carbon can actually make single, double, and triple bonds. So that's kind of awesome. And so that allows it to do a lot of different things. So there's a lot of variety when it comes to carbon. Okay. We also have these things called isomers. So same chemical formula with different structures. So we're going to see this especially when we talk about carbohydrates. With this C6H12O6, it can be organized in a couple of different ways. So those C6s can be in different organizations. And then functional groups are just add-ons. So they're little things that we can add on to a carbon molecule, and they can create a lot of variety. So once again, the biggest thing is we've got levels of changes that can make variety happen in these carbon molecules. Okay. So life's diversity comes from these levels of variety. So carbon has, remember, 4 valence electrons that can make a lot of different things. So here we have an example of that. So we've got short, longer, rings, branched. Okay, so you can see all of these things. So short, long, in a ring, straight, or a branch. So you can see all of that stuff. So these 4 valence electrons result in all of these different carbon backbones. The isomers, the fact that we can have them in different arrangements, and I'm going to show you that when we talk about carbohydrates, because I have a, it's a really good isomer of that. And then functional groups. So here are the functional groups. So these functional groups, all right, and you can see the different ones. The ones that I have circled here, these are the really important ones that I want you to memorize, okay, because we're going to use these a lot. Carboxyl, amine, and phosphate groups. So these are just groups that actually just stick onto one of these carbon backbones. So here, let's say, take this ring right here. Okay, we have these bonds. So these are other bonds that can be made. A lot of times they're hydrogen. But we could come across and we could stick an amino group off of it. Okay. And so what that means is basically these functional groups are add-ons. Over here, we could stick the ketone group. All right. Okay, so anytime we see that, we could just add one of these functional groups. And so that adds to life's diversity. So when we think about these, small molecular differences can actually make very large changes. So here we have an estradiol compound and a testosterone compound. So estradiol means it's going to make a female. Testosterone is going to make a male. Okay, so we can see the pictures here. All right, estradiol is a female hormone. So when we look at these, there's a couple of variations here. All right, so here's a functional group. Okay, so here's another functional group. So these guys, and then the structure for the most part is the same. Okay, rings, 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 rings. But then we get over here. All right, so if we were to break this down, 3 of the 4 rings, almost 75% of the molecule is exactly the same. Okay, this last 25%, however, is different. So here we've got an OH group versus an O. we have a methyl group versus no methyl group. And then here we have a couple of double bonds where here we're lacking those double bonds. So 75% of the molecule is exactly the same. 25% of the molecule is different, but these very tiny molecular differences create very large physical differences. All right. So we're going to kind of look at the relationship between the small differences and the big differences. We're going to talk about that. So in order to make carbohydrates, we need to make molecules bigger. We need to make molecules smaller. Okay. Dehydration synthesis. So if we dehydrate something, we are removing water. And if we are synthesizing something, we are making. Okay, so we are building that bond. So dehydration synthesis is right here. So we are taking out the water. Okay, you can see we've got an H here and we've got an OH here that come together and look like H2O. Okay, and they create H2O. Okay, then we end up getting the bond made right here. All right, to create the larger molecule. So we went from having a 2 and a 1 and then to 1, 3 per piece. So that's where we take a monomer. Okay, so this guy would be a monomer because it's 1. Monomer means 1. And then we form polymers. All right, so polymers mean many. So poly, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then hydrolysis is the exact opposite. All right. So hydro, we add water, lysis, to break. And we're going to see that word lyse or lysis a lot. So then it's just the reverse. We add water and we break it apart. Okay. I know this is a little bit quick, but it's not. We're going to kind of revisit this stuff as we move through the year. Right now we're just focusing on carbohydrates. So, like I said, we have 4 main classes of macromolecules, and we're going to talk about all 4 of these over the course of time, but right now we're just focusing on carbohydrates. So this guy right here. So you will see this chart again. All right, so carbohydrates, we've got monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. So monosaccharides, mono means 1, so it's a smaller, okay. Disaccharides, di means 2, so we end up putting 2 together. Polysaccharides, we have many in a line, okay? So carbohydrates are molecules that are used for quick energy. So this is stuff that you burn right away. So if you are in a, if you're on a sports team, you're going to be in a, what's it called, in a meet or in a match or something like that, and you carbo load. All right, pasta parties. Why do you have those things? All right, you have that because it's used for quick energy. You're going to burn through that quicker. Okay, it's only made up of 3 elements, C, H, and O, and it's always in a 1-to-1 ratio. It rhymes, so that should be easy for you. Made up of C, H, and O in a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so like I said, C6, H12, I'm getting better at writing with this, O6. Okay, so 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. So you will always see that ratio in some way. So if it was C55, H110, O55, okay, that would still be a carbohydrate. It would be a polysaccharide because it would be a big carbohydrate, but that would still be a carbohydrate. A lot of your carbohydrates also end in ose. Okay. Polysaccharides is a little bit different, but lactose, maltose. Okay, so monomer is a monosaccharide. So here's some examples. Glucose, fructose, galactose. Polymer is a polysaccharide, glycogen, cellulose, chitin, and starch. And then lactose and maltose are disaccharides, so they're kind of in between here. Okay. So here we have glucose, fructose, and galactose. All right, and like I said, you can see, so these are also all isomers. Isomers. Because you see, they have the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they all have 6 carbons. Okay, and if we counted up the rest of them, they would all be C6H12, O6. But you can see they're arranged differently. So that's just what an isomer means. All right, then we also have our polysaccharides right here. So we've got glycogen, okay, which we actually find in our liver, our liver cells, our muscle cells. All right, we've got cellulose, which is part of a plant cell wall. Cellulose is actually what was known as fiber. Okay, we can't actually digest fiber. That's why if you eat corn, it looks the same going in as it does coming out, because fiber is cellulose, or corn is full of fiber, and so we can't digest it. Okay, and then starch, okay, which is basically a storage molecule. So glycogen and starch are both glycogen and starch over here. They are both polysaccharides that store energy, or store glucose, really. They store glucose for us. Starch is in animals, or excuse me, glycogen is in animals, starch is in plants. Okay? All right, wrap up. So I want you to go into your kitchen and find a food item that has some of these these terms on it, and I want you to figure out what they are and define them. So you need to go to Blackboard. All right, and I will see you in class. I know that was quick. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in class. All right, bye.